Hello, everybody. My name's Tim Hughes. I'm the Director of Communications for the Spirit Invest Group. Today, I'm going to interview Vannessa Nicholas, who's Head of Estate Administration at Appleton Fiduciary Services. You may recall in the last video that Vannessa did, she introduced the concept of the life file and spoke a little bit about why it's useful and what's in it. Today, we're going to do a deeper dive into the life file. It's a critical thing that we believe every client should have reasonably close to hand. Good morning, Vannessa. Good to speak to you again.
Good morning, Tim. Thank you.
Last month, we chatted about the importance of creating your life file, and you briefly summarized what should be in it. So what I want to know today is a bit more about it, and perhaps you can do a deeper dive in terms of unpacking your life file. So just refresh us and the viewers as to what exactly is a life file.
Okay, thank you, Tim. So a life file is basically a file that one compiles and places all your important documentation relating to yourself. It's best to categorize the life file to make it easier in order for you to actually gain access to the information. So by categorizing it into your personal information, your financial information, your estate planning section, perhaps a section for your property and assets, as well as in a section for your digital assets, insurance policies, and perhaps a section just for other documentation.
Including sort of medical stuff as well.
Yes, your medical, yes, that's quite correct.
Okay, so you've said that, but actually how will a life file really help me, and how would it help my family in the event of my passing?
Okay, so that's very interesting because, a life file is actually going to help you in three folds. Basically, during your lifetime, at the time of your passing, and then after your funeral. So let me just look at during your lifetime. By having a life file, you're organizing and placing all your information in one particular file. So it just makes it easier for you to, if you need to reference something, you can go to this file and just have a look for your information. Secondly, at the time of your death, I think it's very important. Sorry, just going back to during your lifetime. Should you, for any unforeseen circumstances, become ill, your family will be able to go to this file and actually see exactly what you have placed in your file and actually know how to run things during this time of illness. Going now back again, to the time at the time of your death. Many people will actually place in their will that they wish to have be buried, or otherwise they wish to be cremated. But often people don't see the will until it's too late. So if they have a look at your life file and under your estate planning section, you have mentioned your wishes in respect of being buried or being cremated. This is at least will give them guidance as to what your wishes are. Secondly, you could also put wishes in regard to your funeral arrangements. What type of music you'd like to be played, if there's any religious script you'd like maybe read. At the same time, do you want flowers? Would you prefer that somebody gives a donation to a certain cause at the time of your passing? The other very important thing is a funeral policy. Under your estate planning docs, you'll have your funeral policy, a very daunting task with loved ones when they actually go to the undertaker and suddenly realize the cost of a funeral. Then the third part is after the funeral. So after the funeral, by having your life file, all your documentation is in one place. Your family members, your next of kin, will indeed find this a helping hand when the estate administrator asks you to gather together information. You'll merely have to grab the life file and actually have everything at hand. It'll also help the family in order to know what needs to be paid. So you're not having a situation where suddenly you have a telecom account, municipal account, or the medical aid suddenly not being paid because you have all of this information in one file.
So it seems like a very important file. Can you just remind us again succinctly what sort of information, what sort of personal information are you recommending the viewers and our clients put into the life file, and why it should be in there?
Okay, so if we look at the personal information that we're going to be putting into our life file, we'll start with our identity document. Nowadays, a lot of people have the identity card. One must make sure that your latest proof of identity that you have that available. often what we find is when someone passes away, we're given a copy of their green ID, but in fact they have had a new ID card issued. And the banks and Home Affairs and the banks pick this up. And basically we need to work with the latest issue ID. Your marriage certificates and your antenuptial contract should you be married. Your spouse's details and a copy of their ID. Your children's birth certificates and ID documents if you have them. And then if you had an ex-spouse, be it a predeceased spouse or an ex-wife, we need a copy of the divorce order, sorry. So the divorce order, everyone says, well, why do you need the divorce order? Why should I place this in my life file? Reason being is that we need to have a look at the divorce order and see if there are any claims that might be due to the deceased or due by the deceased in terms of any divorce order. At the same time, we ask for copies of predeceased spouse as details. Reason being, again, in the case of the administration of the estate, one needs to have a look if there was any limited interest in the predeceased spouse's estate. So these documents are vital in your personal information. It will prevent the spouse or next of kin having to run around and try and find these documents. So going back, what other documents are we going to be putting into our personal personal section of the life file? We'll also put in our next of kin, our tax number and our tax profile, making it easy for somebody to access the tax profile. We'll also put in our details of our medical aid, perhaps, our gap cover, should we have that, as well as important contact details. Your tax practitioner, your accountant, perhaps, if they have somebody who does financials for you, your financial advisor, his details as well in this section. I can go on and on, but those are quite important that one needs to have in the personal section.
One assumes the contact details of your nominated executor as well. In this case, Appleton, I assume, as well.
Yes, that would be great. That would also be a great idea to have your contact details for your executor.
Let's just have a brief look then at property and assets and what would be included in the file about property and assets.
Okay, so if we're looking at our property and our assets, we're looking at our fixed property being our residential home that one resides in. So we need the title deed. So your title deed, obviously the original needs to be placed in a safekeeping, but you'll need to state in your life file where exactly the title deed is. If the bond is paid up, then you will be in possession of your original title deed. Should it be bonded, then your bond holder will in fact hold your title deed. So you'll need to just stipulate the details of who your bond holder is, which bank your house was bonded with. Secondly, if you have a motor vehicle, your registration certificate for your motor vehicle, you need to note where your original registration, motor vehicle registration certificate is. This can obviously be noted in your life file or alternatively kept in a sleeve in your life file, depending if your life file is going to be electronic or is going to be a manual folder, a physical folder. Often what people do is they have a physical folder and then they have an electronic one as well. So your physical folder will enclose all of your original documents. So sorry, getting back to going a little bit off point here, but your property and your assets. So when it comes to your motor vehicle as well, you could even have in your life file where your spare keys are kept. When your car is going to have a relicense. These are items that everybody sort of just assumes one knows, but when you're no longer there, not everybody's going to know about those things. Your banking account details, perhaps, which bank is your current account, where are your investments. All of these details can be listed in your under your assets and your property section of your life file. Firearms, if you have a firearm, where's the safe key? Where is your license up to date? All of these details can also be included under your assets and property.
So that's quite a lot. Thank you for going through that comprehensive list. But something that's emerging recently, or more recently becoming more common, is the category, if you like, of digital assets. Help us understand, how do you deal with digital assets in your life file as well?
Okay, so digital assets is, if we suddenly do not have a password in order to access any digital assets, it creates a major problem. So one actually needs to write down your passwords, keep them in a safe place, and then let a family member, a trusted family member, know where these are stored. Nowadays, we can't even access our own bank profile without our passwords. We can't access even your discovery. If you're on medical aid, you need your passwords in order to get into your profile to find out certain details. When we talk about social media, perhaps you have a Facebook page, perhaps you have a Twitter account, the list can go on. Instagram, we look at even facilities where you make payments, from a PayPal account to a Snapchat. All of these, there could be valuable information as well as a monetary value attached to these digital assets that we need to investigate. And without passwords, we actually are in the dark in order to try and actually gain access to this information.
Well, that's a lot to take. It's a lot of important information. So I'm going to ask you if you would please, in our next video, in our next YouTube video, will you talk more specifically then about estate planning with respect to companies and trusts? Because I assume they have to be dealt with quite differently and quite separately. And there may be a lot more that you have to go into in terms of lifestyle or preparation for estate planning for both companies and trusts.
Yes, that's a great idea, Tim. I'd love to talk about that. One must always realize that your trust and your business entities are separate entities. However, they do have a very big impact on your estate and how your estate is dealt with. And planning in regard to your businesses will impact on how it's going to be dealt with within your estate. So yes, that's a great idea.
We'll look forward to doing that next month.
Yes,
Vannessa,
definitely.
thanks so much, and we look forward to speaking to you next month.